Hello guys, it's FLux here and welcome to 3D Mutiny. In this video I'm going to show you all the secondary software I use as a character artist in the games industry. These softwares have streamlined my workflow over the years and given me a leg up in production. If you leave this video having picked up one additional software that saves you hours of time or unlocks your full potential, please leave a like so I can understand where I'm helping. So let's get started. So one of the tools, techniques and softwares that I use is something called Focus To Do, and it's based off the Pomodoro technique, and it stipulates that you basically split your work into these individual sections where you can plow through it, and then in between you have these breaks. So it's really good at focusing down on tasks, but also at the same time tracking how much time you've put into those efforts. So you can see the way that I've used it here. Basically I split up things like texturing, baking, and if you look, each one of these has an individual timer next to it, and each one of these timers is basically a segment of work, and you can define how much time that segment of work is. So for me, I've set each section as 40 minutes. So whenever I start a task, say in the morning, what I usually do is I write about 4 or 5 onto this little book, and then I transfer it into here. So say for example, like a high poly face I could do. So here I've got a high poly face, and I can add basically a number of units or an estimation of how long I think that will take. Now it's not important that you get this accurate first time. It's more important that you get used to estimating how much time you can put into it and how long it takes, and then you can transfer that over to other things. So that's useful for agile methodologies when you do get into the games industry. So if you're practicing this, not only is it good to get through tasks, but it's also good to start to estimate how much work you're doing. So say it's kind of like a quick face, I could estimate that it's going to take 2. And those sections are just basically defined for myself. Some people like 20 minutes, some people like an hour. I find that 40 minutes is enough where I can get up and just sort of stretch around, maybe change the settings on my desk. So each one's going to be unique to how you like to use it. And the nice thing about this is you can hashtag it to a project. So say you're doing a certain character and flipping between tasks, it's very useful to set them up for the day and then start to press play whenever you start to do that task. You can also set priority lists, due dates. I don't tend to use the extent of this software. I use other softwares for that, but the primary feature that I use is once I've written that goal or that challenge in, I basically come here and press play, and it gives you this nice window. So at this point I've got 40 minutes to focus on a task. My phone will be off to the side and I can just purely focus on creating that or sculpting the high poly face. After 40 minutes, what will happen is this will ring a bell, and then it'll give you another 10-minute or 5-minute break to start. And that's really good, so you can get up and start to walk around. And the theory is like stretching, it improves your longevity for working and also clears your mind out, which is really useful. If anyone's seen my office area, I use lots of plants, so it's got a nice little background. I just drag that off to the side of my screen so I can see how far I've got through it. And if something distracts you, you can just press pause and then come back to your task, or basically you can pause this and move on to a different one if you want to. So the next one is ShareX, and this is actually one of my favorite pieces of software. It's free and you can download it at getsharex.com, and it's a really powerful screen capturing software, so it can capture things like GIFs and videos. But further to that, you can use things like annotations, so you can take a screenshot and quickly annotate it and share it. So that's been useful for me because I can do things like feedback in lecturing, give feedback as art director. And if you're working in the games industry, it's going to be super important to communicate ideas, so you're going to often be capturing things like bugs, taking screenshots of your art so you can have it for feedback, giving feedback itself, and it basically makes the whole entire process much easier. So here's the software. I might have to redact a couple of things for NDA stuff. But in the top left you have capture, and then here you can capture a full screen, a window, a monitor, or a specific region of your screen. Or say for example you're doing some testing or need some feedback for like an animation, say you can do some screen recording on a GIF and then upload that. Now the power of this really comes in the workflows. So after you do a capture, you can actually tick a couple of these sections. So mine, for example, it copies it to the clipboard so I can paste it, maybe something like Slack, Discord, those sorts of things. I also have it save an image to a file, so it saves an archive where I can always see all my lists of screenshots. But some other people might find these interesting, so you can pin it to the screen instantly, or have it upload to a destination, say it's Imager, so you can paste a link to someone so they don't have to actually download the file, or maybe it's going to be backed up instantly on Dropbox and Google. So you can have these all in combination, and it's really cool. You can obviously change all the hotkeys, so if you don't want a print screen, you can maybe maybe have it on your mouse, things like that. But one of my favorites is actually the screenshots folder. And the screenshots folder is really cool because it basically puts all your screenshots into months and years. So I can go back to March of 18. I can open that and basically see what I was up to. So at that time, I was kind of doing some Marvelous Designer bag stuff or just starting the process of sculpting. And why this is really cool as well is you can look back at your projects if you're taking a lot of screenshots along the way, and hopefully you are, and basically see how long it took for you to do each one of those processes. So I can see by the time and date stamps, like how long I was in Marvelous Designer, how long I was in ZBrush, and then I can use that later to basically give accurate estimates to things like contractors or freelancers. So I'm going to show you how to use one of my favorite features of it, and it's basically the annotations and blurring and things like that. So if I press Control print screen, I can select certain areas, maybe even the screen or just a section of the window. But up here, there's a huge list of features, so I can do things like lines, arrows, text. So say, for example, someone's giving me some character or art for review, and then I need to give some feedback for the official process. What I'd do is I'd actually take a screenshot of the image that they sent me. They maybe sent it with ShareX. And with the arrow tool or just pressing A, I can draw and just highlight areas that need some improvements or changes. So with this, what I'd usually do is just start to draw out some arrows, and then I'd come up to steps or press I, and then on each of these I can just click, and it's going to give me a count from 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then with that number I can put it into the text channel and use that for each one of my points. So for example, number 1 is a certain amount of feedback. Let's make up feedback. The eyes are too small. Number 2 is looking a bit muddy or needs some color change. So there's loads of different features here. So for example, you could use a text box and you could manually write your feedback in here. That's what I usually do, so someone can just look at the image. There's also stickers and emojis. So maybe something's looking a bit off, you can put the blob awkward, just put that somewhere, sort of like take the piss. Maybe there's some sensitive information, so you can press B and blur, and that's basically going to hide that section. So once you're finished with that, you can come up to the rectangle region, and then what I do is I just draw a box over this. So with the workflow I've set up, goes into my monthly archive, copies into my clipboard so I can paste that into a chat channel, and it also uploads it to a URL. So if someone can't download it, I can just send them a link. It's a really cool piece of software. So next one is WindirStat, and this is hard drive visualization and management. So whenever you finish the project, you've got one of those big files, maybe it's got some custom brushes, some scan data, big textures, baking information, and also you're saving a lot of iterations of files. So once you've finished up with a project, you ideally don't want this taking up all of your hard drive space. So WindirStat basically analyzes all your drives, gives you basic information, and also shows you visually how they look. So I'm going to show you how I can use it here. You can select an individual file, or you can just select a folder. So with the folder, for example, I'm just going to select where I keep my current active projects. So what it's done here is basically analyzed it, and you can see this folder, personal projects, is taking up a majority of this disk space. And further to that, I can actually come in here and start to click each one of these units and just start to discover what's happening. So if you look, my ZBrush tools are taking up a majority, and it seems that each one of these iterations that I've saved is taking about 3.7 gigabytes. So chances are what's happened there is I've got a project or a Z tool, and I'm just saving the same thing over and over again. So it might be an idea, and how to use this tool is come back over and just delete a couple of these to free up some space. Or maybe one of the options would be that I select all of those and then compress it into an archive. So a really useful tool. So for example, I've got Yoda Substance here, and it's 2.6 gigs, and that's quite a lot, and it feels like it's taking up a lot of space. But the real problem is it's actually my Z tools and my Z projects. So I can go in there, start to clean it up. And if you ever do recording, so obviously I do a lot of recording of my processes and workflows, you can see if there are any stray videos that are taking up a lot of space. Maybe you left one running and it got into the 70 or 100 gigs. So that's totally happened to me before. So I'm going to add this one as a bit of a bonus, but it's really helped me with those late nights and working for extended periods of time. It's basically the Dark Reader, and it's a Chrome extension you can download. So just type in Dark Reader. But as you can see, here we've got a very white website, and if you've got multiple screens, you can probably see it on my face, it's a bit of a flashbang, and for extended amounts of time, especially if you're working in the evening, it'd be quite strenuous on your eyes. So what Dark Reader does, every time you activate it, basically switches up every single website you go to and makes it easier on your eyes. And it does a pretty good job, to be honest. So it designs it in a way where it's easy to read, and it doesn't give you that kind of eye strain. So really useful if you're studying, doing research, have things off to the side, it's going to let your eyes rest a little bit more. Also, if at any point it's a bit too annoying, you can just turn it off for each individual one, and you can change a couple of settings like the brightness and contrast so it fits to what you like. So while I'm on that subject of eye strain, there's a software called FLux, or F.Lux, especially for your sleep and waking patterns. If you're working into the evenings, ideally you don't want this blue light that's hitting your eyes. You might have heard of something called the circadian rhythm. Basically, the blue light messes or simulates the sun, and it affects your sleep pattern. And obviously, if you're learning, you want to succeed, you want to put in long hours, but also you don't want to compromise your health, and sleep is a very important thing, especially when you're studying. You want all that information to be saved into your brain. Anyway, don't want to go on a tangent. This software, basically whenever you install it at a certain period of time, let's say you can set it yourself. I think mine comes in at about 8 o'clock or something. It will change the color of your screen and dim it down. So I can try and simulate it here. Maybe the effects coming across, I'm not too sure on OBS, but it's much nicer on the eye. The only problem with this one, which I found, especially if you're a games artist, is when it comes to texturing. So whenever you go into Substance, I suggest not using this because obviously you want to see the colors. So I've seen many times people have accidentally been texturing while their flux has been activated. It means that the warmth and the lumens have changed, and therefore the textures that they're submitting have changed. So I've had professionals submit textures and they look very blue. And as I've come to work out is that they've used Lux, or they've had weird sleep, and then they've submitted that texture that has sort of like counteract their colors. Really useful one, a powerful one. But also at the same time, just remember to turn that off if you're either rendering or using colors. To do that, what I usually do is I just right click. You can either go to disable, but as a safe one, I don't want it turning back on. I just press exit FLux. Another tool I use, and I say I use this extreme amounts of time, it's almost comparable to ShareX, and it's called GoodSync. Now, GoodSync's useful for file synchronization. So say, for example, you're backing up archives on a hard drive, you're backing up to Google Drive, or maybe you're transferring across multiple computers. So say, for example, something I often do is I'll take a unit of work or a project folder, then I would sync that to my laptop. So specifically how I'll use it is for transferring files or a project from my PC to my laptop. So I want to go to a coffee shop, go outside, maybe go to someone else's house. I can continue to work, and what GoodSync will help me do is make sure there's no conflicts in those files. And quite powerfully, it also works over your network. So for example, how I'd use it with my workflow and my laptop, I've got a job here which is a shared link between one of the drives on my PC and one of the drives on my laptop here. Can't really see it, just proof that I have a laptop, I guess. But the screen that you see here will be exactly on the laptop as well. So what I'll do is I'll collect a project from my PC and then click the analyze button. It will show me which ones have been updated, which ones have been deleted, and which ones have been renamed. Also gives me an assessment of the drive space that I have available. So I'll make this sync transfer. It will happen all over my Wi-Fi connection. I can then take the copied data, go to a lake or go for a walk as I often do. Those files on my laptop will have been updated, so they'll have a better date or have the increased size. Maybe some have been deleted, or I've rearranged the folder structure. When I come back to my PC, press analyze again, I can then resynchronize all those folders back, and then those files and folders are going to be matching. So it kind of sounds a little bit scary, but once you get used to it, it's actually quite hard to have any file errors. The software is really good at analyzing what things have changed and what hasn't. It's much better than just doing a straight transfer from your USB, because it doesn't copy things and transfer things that haven't changed. It's also useful as a backup solution. So I have my online storage solution. I also have physical hardware copies. So every couple of weeks or so, I'll get that hard drive, sync everything up. And the nice thing is it's not going to copy the files that haven't changed. Also at the same time, anytime I do one of these transfers, I have it automatically back up to the Google Drive. So really useful piece of software. The only thing is it's not free. So for every PC that you use, you maybe have to pay a little bit of money for that. So you can try it out for free. But as you can see here, per license, it's about $20 for the computer. So PC and computer is about $40. So this one I also use quite extensively, and it's for finding folders and files. Maybe they're lost in certain structures. The software is called Everything. You can find it on Void Tools. With Everything, basically gives you a very fast search functionality. So say, for example, I'm looking for low poly, or I recognize the name of one of my projects. I can come and find that very quickly. So for this character, say her name's Jana, I can see her high poly, her auto saves, and basically see the path directory. And usually what I do is I can either open it from here, right click and open path. And basically with that path open, it's going to show me where that texture is located, and I can see all the textures that I can hook up. So really useful if you're in Unreal Engine, you're trying to look for a certain texture, you can just type into Everything, click open with, and then suddenly you've got access to this directory. Very cool and lightweight. You can also add things to bookmarks. So say, for example, you've got a couple of projects that you use quite a lot. Usually what I do is I press Windows key, type in everything, press enter, and I've got really quick access to that. So linking everything, not everything, but the software everything. If I type in project name, this is a folder structure I use often. So at the start of every project, there's common folder structures I use. I always use ZBrush, I export textures, and I like them to be in the same place every single time. So what I've done is just created a folder called project name. If I double click on this, you can see the outlines of all the folder structures I use. Now this will be specific to how you like to use it, maybe using certain software that others aren't. But say, for example, Substance, I put a 2 in front of it just because I want it to be quite high. If I double click on this, I can see that I've got an exports list, and in that exports list is usually where I put my exported Substance textures. So you can create these however you want. And at the start of a project, what I'll do is I'll just come here and then just rename it to my character or the new project that I have. Another really cool thing to do, if you right click and then come to properties, and then under customize, you can actually change the icon of the folder. And that's really useful for when you've got a lot of projects. I don't know about you, but I can't see a lot of words written down, not like I've got that programmer's mind. I need to see some kind of color or icon so I can easily click it. So you can change the icon here, or you can download your own icons, which are quite useful. And now for every single one of my projects, I always know where things are because I can completely remember the folder structure of this. So it's a really cool technique for every project because you can build up that muscle memory or that mind palace of where things are located. Also really good technique for when you're moving into the games industry. We often use folder structures because we need to put them on depots, or either we need to share it to another artist, and it's very useful that everyone understands where things are located, and it's super important, along with naming conventions, which we might go through later, which is a perfect opportunity to say subscribe so you can see all those videos that I'm going to be uploading based on folder structures, how to work in the games industry, how to get games jobs, and in general just become a better character artist. So I do a lot of art directorship as well, and usually what I'll do is we'll create that as a team, that folder structure, and then I'll send it out to everyone so they can use it. So here's another useful one I use when I'm working. Sometimes if I have articles off to the side that I need to read, but also want to do some like low poly work or something, and it's called Read Aloud. It's a Chrome web extension. And here we go. We can use the old one. We can use Dark Reader just to turn this nice. So how I use Read Aloud, you can use this for anything, but I'm going to use 811 as an example. You know, this artist has given their workflow, loads of useful information, but I can't be asked to read it. I want to do some sculpting and things like that. So what you can do is come up here and click this little text to speech icon, and then it's going to start to read out what's on the screen.
Rishikesh Lasker has walked us through the production process behind the Batman sculpt, explained the workflow in ZBrush and Substance 3D Painter.
You know, it's a bit funny, you know, like but how I usually sometimes what I do is I'll just turn up the volume, walk off somewhere, maybe clean my desk a little bit so I can continue listening to that, and then I can come back and work. So you can use it how you like, but I thought it was very interesting. So if you remember, we went through the time focus management. At the end, I'm going to show you the link to that. So at the start of the video, we went through focus time management, and I'm going to link another software at the end of the video. I'm going to quickly breeze through this piece of software. It's called Notion. The reason I'm going to go through it fast is covered everywhere extensively. I don't know how many people actually use it on their personal projects. I mean, I certainly use it for organizing things like this YouTube channel, making video ideas, notes, and things like that. Really useful if you're working with multiple people, especially when it comes to the games industry. You're going to be using Kanbans, working with art directors and producers who are going to be setting you tasks that you're going to have to manually work through. As a general consensus, it's a way of storing documentation, whether that's in the form of tables, timelines, projects. And there's lots of new integrations coming into it, like AI. Don't know how good it is, but it's very useful for a personal utility. I especially use it for taking notes, basically. So just here, for example, what I've done is I have a campaign. Every time I complete one of the videos or have a video idea, I write it into here, and then when I record it, I can sort of move this over and it changes its table orientation. And then with each one of these videos, I can just have some subject bullet points that I have off to the side. So the next one's really useful, and I certainly use it a lot for annotating live on a screen. Maybe I'm using this for feedback or just doing some descriptions during a live video. The software is called Epic Pen. You can see I haven't used it in a while because I haven't done an update. I was on holiday, that's why I haven't been making videos, but super useful here. You can change a couple of colors and just annotate on top of things, rub them out. Usually what I do is just hotkey this on my keyboard and sometimes my mouse so I can quickly draw it up. It's very similar to ShareX. Maybe ShareX is a little bit more powerful, but the one benefit about this that it is an overlay and it is a live demonstration, something that ShareX isn't very good at. So if you type in Epic Pen or Ripic Pen and come to the first one, you can find the download here. So how I use this in the industry or doing a live feedback session. Let's go into latest and find a willing victim. Okay, sorry, Meg Turner, you're getting some unsolicited feedback. So during these meetings, we might be sharing the screen in Teams. That's often. And what I'll do is I'll get Epic Pen and start drawing as I'm starting to talk. Maybe there's certain areas to draw the focus of the people that are listening to me. So it saves a lot of time. It's very useful. Also, maybe that other people are taking screenshots of my screen. So it's useful to have everything that I'm talking about written on top of here. Sometimes what can be quite useful is that it's drawing on top of the screen, almost like a transparency. So you can actually draw something, move around, maybe move a model about, and then overlay it on other things. So it's almost like a quick and dirty way. For a character, what I'll often do is, say, for example, I seem to use it on hair quite a bit. I'll come in here and just draw some silhouettes that I'm trying to achieve. Maybe something's missing. Maybe this silhouette's a bit boring. We could put like a cape. I can then move over to the next section and maybe draw over that silhouette with another sculpt or another model. So next one's super awesome, and you've probably heard of it. So just in case you haven't, PureRef is a way of previewing your reference images. The nice thing about this, it almost has this unlimited resolution where you can zoom in and out. You can move all of these individually, resize them, rescale them, or if, for example, you hold C, you can crop them to a certain distance just so you can focus on those sections. You double click it, you can zoom in and out. Very useful for facial animations, or use the side to side keys to basically scroll through that. How I like to use it, obviously at the start of every project, I'll create a PureRef file, put that off to the side. I'll put my past screenshots that I've taken with ShareX. I'll put that in there. I'll also have collections of, say, for example, like an arm anatomy cluster, say, for example, arm anatomy. So if I need to be reminded of arm anatomy, I can just come back here and look through them. You've probably seen a video. This is the one I use for the arm anatomy sculpting. Other ways you can use it, if you press Control and F, goes from maximize to minimize. And then with the right click button, you can move this around the screen. Once it's positioned, you can obviously rescale this window however you like. Now, if you right click and go to mode and go to always on top, now means you can work inside of ZBrush and just have this floating on top and always see your references. And also if you don't want this to move, you can press Control and W. That's going to lock the window so you can't move it. So you've got your references off to the side here, and then you can work on ZBrush. So last but not least is Clockify, and it's a way of tracking your time. It links really well into the focus tool. So usually how I use it is I use the focus tool for taking breaks, and then I use Clockify for tracking my work. And now why it's really useful to track your work is that at the finishing of a project, you can look back at it and see how long each component took. So say, for example, you're doing sculpting, unwrapping, texturing, you can just come in here and type what you're doing. So say, for example, I've started an unwrap and I can assign that to a new project or a character. So we can see unwrapping, new project. And when I click start, it's then going to start to time me. I would then do my work segment, start doing my unwrapping. When I finish that unwrapping task, I would then click stop. And it just gives me a breakdown of all the components. So that's really useful if you're a freelancer. Say, for example, you want to outsource some of that work like unwrapping or low poly. You can see that it's taking up a large section of your time inside of the project, and then you can just start to outsource that. So it's more of a freelancer's tool, and I might have to go in a little bit more depth in a future video. So subscribe, I'll definitely release something like that, how you can manage your time and start to outsource things so you can make more money as a freelancer. Also very useful for me, for example, when I'm working in the games industry as an art director, I want to see where my time is being allocated and how I can reallocate that to other members. It can be very useful, and just in general, a very good technique to follow to make sure that you're being well optimized with your time, especially if you've got multiple projects on the go. Another benefit to this, I don't know if other people would use it, you can put your hourly rate to it. I think that would be a bit of psychological torture. So use it how you want. There's loads of different features here, like the calendar, so you can see how much time you've put in the past. If you look, I haven't had a little bit of a holiday, but I did manage to slip something in. So it's nice to look back at your calendar and see how much work you've actually been putting in. It also offers you some reports and breakdowns. So what I use it for, especially when I'm making a YouTube video, they do take a lot of time in terms of recording, editing and publishing. So usually what happens is the recording is only like 1/6 of it and the rest is editing and publishing. So hopefully what I'm trying to do is cut down on my editing time and just make sure I'm doing lots of recordings so you guys can get the information really fast. So hopefully you found some software that's going to assist you along the way in the future. Before you go, I'll make a couple of suggestions. So the time management ones can be not very attractive at the start, but I promise you, if you start to assign yourself to those, it's going to help you down the road in a couple of years when you start to work in the games industry. I definitely find people that have used agile methodologies, things like Notion or time tracking software, very useful. So getting the habit on your projects of understanding how to track those sorts of hours. And it's also really good to look back at your old projects and see how far you've come, how much time you've put into it. So if you got value of that, please leave a like so I can continue making these videos. Also subscribe, because I'm going to be releasing more content of the similar ilk of how to enter the games industry and basically become an industry professional. As I always say in the description, there's links to our Discord channel where people are giving feedback, general information and video suggestions. I look at these quite a lot. Really cool work that's coming out of here. Also in the description is the 3D Mutiny website. So if you come here, you can get a free welcome package. I'm going to be bulking this up over the next month or so. So lots of free links that are going to be coming, private videos and things like that. Definitely a good space to be if the games industry is your world, and especially if you're learning. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.